In this week's relaunched Observer Food Monthly, we have a whole goodie bag of great features. Our cover story is an interview with the great Gordon Ramsay, the king of classy French food, talking about the challenges he's faced over the past few months. We have an interview with Rick Bayless, the king of Mexican food in America, and recipes from Thomasina Myers, the queen of Mexican food in the UK. Our own Nigel Slater has gone out on the road to a great smokehouse and brought us back a recipe for pasta with smoked chorizo. What links all these various elements is the international nature of the food. It's from France, it's from Italy, it's from Mexico. What it's not is British, and it led me to thinking, despite our deep and in-depth foodie culture, do we have such a thing as British food? And if so, what is it? So if I asked you, what do you think of when I say British food, what comes to mind? Is there a specific set of dishes or a specific trend?
Yeah, the kind of things that come to mind are sort of the offally based things. Faggots immediately leapt into my mind there. I love all the kind of regional stuff like, you know, stargazy pie, which is very fashionable now.
The first place that comes to mind, I suppose, is St John, and that places like that are doing, I suppose, offal and traditional British ingredients, but maybe slightly with a bit of a French influence, which just to refine the techniques.
I have a wide perspective of what I consider British food. I know what traditional British food is, but we're talking about modern British food. You have to take into consideration the influences of those who live within it.
I mean, there's British dishes, fish and chips, and chicken tikka masala and things like that. You know.
But, well, that's the issue, isn't it? Because this is very much a nation with a huge influence from its immigrant cultures, which have rippled through it.
British is such a broad term. It depends on how far you want to look back. I mean, Britain has a very rich history. I mean, even if you go back to Norman times, I mean, essentially a lot of Normans were French, so a lot of influences come into the cuisines.
French classical cooking is probably important in terms of training and kind of learning techniques, and you know, applying those sorts of techniques to kind of classic dishes as kind of probably is responsible for the revival.
A perfect example of what I consider as British food. I mean, I love any good TV program, food programs, and I've become a big fan of the Great British Menu, as they say. I mean, obviously that's got their own little take on it, but one person who really, you know, interested me in what he's doing, someone like Glyn Pennell. I mean, for example,
he's got a restaurant in Birmingham.
Exactly, Pennell's,
right.
Yeah. Sorry. So example, he was cooking faggots, like he said, a very traditional British food, whilst for his main course he was cooking like monkfish in like a curry broth.
Why did we lose touch, do you think, with those great British dishes you've talked about?
I'm not really sure. I think, you know, because when we had the war,
Well, go on.
There was food rationing and stuff. People kind of lost interest because they had to. I think it must have been some kind of like sensory cut-off that had to happen almost, you know. Things just weren't available. They weren't there, you know, so you just didn't have the ingredients. So I think people just kind of shut off a bit of their brain and just got on with it and just, you know, made the best and kind of got through a difficult period. But now, you know, everything's sort of more relaxed and we've got all these wonderful things available to us and people are getting into it.
My mum, she's a brilliant cook. She cooks lots of great Chinese food. I mean, something varying from, she does an excellent sweet and sour pork, for example, which, you know, some might not consider Chinese, but the way she does it is very different to what you get in the restaurants, to a lotus root soup. But then on Sunday, she'll cook a roast and my dad has now actually started cooking, you know, fish and chips.
Your foodies from New York will come over to go to St John, and they'll fly over, you know, and go there and you know, pay pilgrimage. But outside of very few select people anywhere in the world, I don't think they would know. When they think of British food, they think of fish and chips and pies and mash and cottage pie, you know, and things like that, you know, which are all very nice, but they're not. It's not exactly a revolution, is it? We've been doing this for 100 years.
If you had to shape a brilliant British menu, 3 dishes: starter, main course, dessert, what would you want to see there?
I'd want to see samphire in there. I'd probably have that in my starter because I just love it. Some kind of pan-fried fish on some samphire with maybe like a cockle dressing. Starter,
a crab, I suppose, potted shrimp, something. Yeah, potted shrimp, that'd be nice as a starter.
I'd probably go for something like a prawn cocktail to start.
And then I'd have a stargazy pie, but a good one, maybe not pilchards.
Stargazy pie is the one where the fish heads are actually sticking out from the pie, aren't
That's
they?
right, yeah, the pilchards heads are sticking out from the pie, but I'd perhaps jazz it up a bit and do a bit of a nicer version.
And main course, I'm a big fan of game, so I'd go for roast grouse.
Fish and chips or a roast beef and Yorkshire pudding.
And for dessert, I would probably have something gooey and custardy.
Something simple like a trifle, even.
I don't know. I'm not a big dessert person. It's a bit tricky for me, that one. Maybe just a bowl of ice cream.
Sticky toffee pudding is probably my favourite, from Cartmel in the Lake District.
You're a man after my own cholesterol-drenched heart.
Yeah, that's right, sadly, yes.